Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mrs. Nina Kingsmill Moore, head at Wetherby Preparatory School in London. Wetherby Preparatory School is an all-boys day school for children aged between 7 and 13. Every boy at Wetherby Prep was given the opportunity to shine, be it in academics, sport, performing arts, or one of the school's many clubs and co-curricular activities. After Wetherby Prep, boys go to a range of leading senior schools, including Wetherby Senior, as well as St Paul's, Eton, Wellington College. Nina Kingsmill Moore joined Wetherby Preparatory School as head this summer. She has a wealth of experience, including being headmistress at Glendower Preparatory School and deputy head at Lambrook School. We're thrilled to have you on our podcast.
Thank you, Chloe.
Firstly, can you tell us about your background and how you came to be head at Wetherby Prep? And further to that, how do you feel your experience leading Glendower Preparatory School will enlighten you in your leadership now at Wetherby?
Education has been, something that I have been passionate about now for many, many years. And going into senior leadership, interestingly, my first senior leadership position was at Wetherby Notting Hill. So one could say I've done a full circle back to Wetherby, but not quite the same school, but definitely the same sort of ethos and group of schools. So I was deputy head there for a number of years, and then I went on to have my own family. And after that, I was itching to get back into senior leadership. I moved out of London because I had 3 young children under 2, so slightly my own little class that I was working with at home, but itching to get back in. So Lambrook School was actually where my children went to school, and I was absolutely thrilled when an opportunity came up for me to rejoin education. I then went on to run the pre-prep for a while and then took up the deputy headship towards the end of my time there. So, a wonderful sort of setting to learn or remind myself the craft of leadership in schools. I then realised I really wanted to go on to headship. So I looked around, and because I'd worked in London before, I loved the buzz and energy of London. And Glendower came up, so I applied for it and was absolutely thrilled to be offered my first headship at Glendower, which was an incredible experience. Interesting in that I joined, and then in the first term we were inspected, and then straight after that we went into lockdown. So for a first headship, it was interesting. But in all honesty, I learned such invaluable lessons in that time there. And while it was an all-girls school, so, we can talk about that a little bit more because I'm obviously at an all-boys school now, and then I have been asked the question quite regularly, how does that translate? But the craft of leadership, the sort of experience of that, the ability to take a school through moments of crisis, a global crisis, obviously at that time, those skills were absolutely fine-tuned, tested to their limits, but we were all in it together, so it was fantastic. And then I heard about Wetherby Prep coming up. And for me, there's a little place in my heart for Wetherby, always has been. And so when I heard about the opportunity, I had to explore it further. The more I found out, the more I was excited about coming back. So I took all those lessons that I had learned from my first headship, and I'm hoping to be able to apply some of them, but equally learn new ones because each school is different, but it has its own unique environment. And that's really important that I don't just try and recreate what I did before. So as a leader in the school, I've just had the most amazing first 6 weeks. And we look forward to seeing, what else we can do with Wetherby as we go along.
I visited recently and had a fantastic tour. But could you tell us a little bit about the ethos and the values that you feel are kind of core to the school?
It's interesting. You absolutely have to be in the building to get a sense of what it's all about. And interestingly, we've just had some open mornings with prospective parents, and there's a real sense of buzz, productivity, and real purpose in the building. These are boys who are throwing themselves into learning. They may be coming out of one classroom having just done a math lesson, moving into a music lesson, or perhaps going into our theatre that we have on site here and doing a drama lesson, or maybe an English lesson. So it's just that wonderful sense of purposeness as they move around the building. And boys are great at telling you how they feel and giving you little anecdotes as they walk past you. And some of my favourite things are actually finding the boys around the school, chatting to them. and seeing them live out our value system. So we have 6 values that we hold dear here at Wetherby. They are teamwork, inclusivity, kindness, perseverance, respect, and honesty. And we really, really do try and live those out in our actions sort of day to day. So just this morning, I did an assembly on inclusivity, and, it was wonderful. I'm a great believer in getting the boys up and getting them involved in the assembly. So each week we've done some quite exciting things. We did one on teamwork, we've done one on kindness, and so I'll go on and really bring that to life for the boys. And then we try and spot that happening around the school. So as an example, we've just introduced a random acts of kindness box so that the boys can spot somebody within the school being brilliant and kind and helpful. They write them down, they nominate them, and then each week in assembly, I will open the box and randomly select, 3 or 4 of those to read out to the full school assembly, including parents who come to watch the assemblies as well. And then we can really celebrate these values in action. So yes, it is just a wonderful place, and anybody close by, come and visit us. You'll really get a sense for it.
It's a real rabbit warren. Every time you think that there's no further to explore, there's another room.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Many families are currently preparing for the admissions process, whether it be, with younger children or looking ahead kind of to 11 plus, 13 plus, and schools like Wetherby Prep. What's the process like at Wetherby Prep, and what advice would you give to parents?
Yes, it is the assessment season. I would start off by saying, if you are a parent going through this period of time, it's really difficult for you to sometimes, shut out all the conversations that are going on around the process. I think the hardest thing is that we forget sometimes that each child is unique and individual, and we sometimes try and apply other people's stories to our own child. And I think that's really difficult at times when, you can get caught up in all sorts of conversations. So my first piece of advice is just remember this is about your boy, in our case, obviously girls and boys for others, and really trust the advice that the school gives you about your child. I'm currently meeting with parents one-to-one, and the advice I give to one group of parents, 20 minutes later, I will be giving completely different advice to the next set of parents. Now, if they were to go out and compare notes, they would think Mrs. Kingsmill Moore has gone mad. She's saying different things. But the reason is because I'm applying what I know about that unique individual to their situation. So I'd say that's really, really important, and it's difficult. And I empathize with parents. It's not easy, going through this process. However, as a group of schools, we've actually been very conscious of this. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we looked at opening schools that see boys from the beginning of their educational journey all the way through to the end, if parents so choose to do that. And that way you can really eliminate this sort of stressful time that you go through as a parent, because we can help boys move from the pre-preps into our school, into, Wetherby Prep. And then beyond that, we can help boys then move into either Wetherby Senior School, which is obviously all boys, or the brand new in building but not in ethos, Wetherby Pembridge, which is about to open, which is a co-ed senior school. It will open in Olympia. So, we've got some excellent options to be able to offer parents to alleviate this stressful process. However, of course, we always have parents who are interested in looking around, and rightly so. I think it's important we match the child with the school. If for whatever reason parents are moving or, want to consider boarding options, then we will give advice to parents. So we really try and tailor that advice to the individual situation. We look at the boarding schools, we help them through the assessment process. And as you and I know, it's not the same in every school. We certainly haven't made it easy as educationalists for parents to understand this process. So that's when those individual conversations are so important. So not just about the child, but also about the assessment criteria and process that they will go through.
And how do you prepare pupils for their admissions processes? Obviously, one of the differences between Glendower Prep and where you are now is you would have handed over at 11 plus. Yeah. So it would have been a very clear transition point. But often with many of the boys' schools, there's a 13 plus entry. So slightly different, kind of a bit more tiered, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's just more protracted, which is at times quite stressful for the boys because it goes on, it could be up to 3 years that they are waiting to hear about their school place. So we prepare the boys. It really starts at the beginning. I mean, I think people assume that preparation is only doing practice papers, and it really isn't. It's about people's attitude towards their learning. So we really make sure that those sets of skills that aren't necessarily, you can't label them assessment skills, but actually if you come back down to it, they all feed into the bigger picture. So are they willing to give things a go if they come across, something that they find a bit more tricky? So, we help them to be resourceful, to draw on the knowledge that they have already. And that might be through familiarizing them with different styles of questioning that we just bring up incidentally throughout their time, maybe in year 3 and year 4. We give them exposure to online platforms, which are similar to the kinds of assessments that they would sit if they are sitting something like the IOCB pre-test. So there are so many different ways that we start the preparation. Obviously, as they get closer to either the 11 plus, because some boys will leave us at that point, or the 13 plus, we then start to really fine tune the skills that are needed for those types of assessment. So we look at boys who are possibly doing paper assessments for certain schools. How can we help them prepare for that? And, the same for the online. And then ultimately, if they're staying with us until the 13 plus common entrance, we look at the types of schools that they're going into, whether the boys are potential scholars, and how we can help them to prepare for scholarships as well as the common entrance process. So actually, it's a wide variety of different activities that we go through and groupings that we look at to really prepare each boy almost individually for the pathway that they are on.
It has to be so tailored. Wetherby Prep is part of the family of schools, as you've already mentioned, and we've obviously talked a little bit about the pre-prep and senior schools, and all of the schools are located in London. And then we've got Wetherby Pembridge co-ed senior school due to open. What do you feel, obviously you've worked with Wetherby before, so you perhaps have some previous experience, are the benefits of being part of a group of schools such as this? And do most people stay at Wetherby throughout their whole education?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've got a group of schools, and then we are obviously also supported and owned by a big group above us, Inspired Education Group, who are, incredible at supporting us all the way through and ensuring that that journey is as seamless as it can possibly be. So yes, lots of boys do stay with us all the way through, and it's lovely because that real sense of belonging and pride for the Wetherby name and ethos and everything that goes with that, it's wonderful. So we are always happy to support those journeys all the way through. I think beyond that, the Inspired Education Group, they are a group that was set up to really bring excellence into education. And they work on 3 pillars of education. So they look at obviously the sporting side of things, the extracurricular or co-curricular as well. It might be the arts and drama and all those kinds of things. And then the academics as well. And those are key components of schools. And I think the fact that we have so much support, expertise behind that, and, ideas that are generated, and that's hugely beneficial. And then we're able to bring that to the boys and families as well. They can see what we're doing and hopefully gain that trust that actually as a group, we care about education. We're not just in it for the wrong reasons. We're in it for the right reasons. We want to make these boys' experiences as meaningful and dynamic as we possibly can. So it's really quite cutting edge stuff that's going on. There's lots of work in the ed tech sector with the AI side of things and, bringing that into the classrooms, and not just in IT lessons, but, across all the range of subjects, which is really exciting. And we're constantly doing training on this and really trying to upskill ourselves because, as we know, children learn faster than we do. So having people with those technical skills behind the scenes who can really upskill us, is absolutely invaluable.
And Wetherby is, as you said, part of this Inspired Education Group, and they're a global group of over 100 schools in 24 countries. How does that also feed into the running of Wetherby and being a part of this?
Well, interestingly, we've just gone up to 119 schools globally. I mean, It's
Wow.
incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. What's really interesting, at the start of the year, we all joined a call with all the heads of school from around the world. And I found that absolutely fascinating because that global, how would I describe it, almost capturing of these minds that are, the leaders in education. It's really rare to find yourself in a virtual room of people who brings so much expertise and so much experience to the table. And having the ability to talk to each other, to compare notes, to give advice, it's something that, I haven't experienced before. I mean, there's always your sort of local group, but this is a global group. So, it really is incredible. And I think the fact that then behind that, in each of the different regions, we have experts working, whether that's in the, finance or the HR, everything that you need, we have the Inspired team behind us. So we have our voice, and then we're hugely supported behind that by all these experts in their field. Yeah, it's exciting.
And I think with London now being so transient, it's important that, some of the children could go to schools as well as Wetherby London all over the world. So
Absolutely.
It does give you that global vision, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you aren't moving schools, we have this great program where it's an exchange program. So we can take pupils from one of the Inspired schools overseas, and one of our boys can go and spend a term, I don't know, in Brazil or Peru or Switzerland. We've got schools literally all over the world, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, all over Europe. There are schools there where you can bring life experience. If a boy goes over to Brazil for a term and learns in an environment which is so different from the one here in Marylebone, wow, what an incredible experience. And that's
Absolutely.
something really unique that we can offer.
And next year, obviously, you've mentioned Wetherby Pembridge, the co-ed senior school is opening in Olympia. It will obviously become a senior school option within the Wetherby group of schools. Do you know anything about what led to the opening of this school? And do you feel that there is an increased demand for co-education?
Yeah, definitely. I think an option for co-education in a senior school in London is something that I believe, having that strong sort of academic model with everything that goes with an inspired school, is, in my mind, there haven't been enough options available to families. And certainly when I was, placing girls into senior schools, it was something that we used to have a conversation around. There are great co-ed schools, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, there isn't a wealth of them, but I think it comes back to having a wide selection where you can offer these schools as somewhere that girls and boys can go to and thrive in. And I think that's the exciting thing. There are so many people all vying for the same schools, and to have another option which is academically really strong, obviously with all these co-curricular things that we're talking about, performance opportunities, and then all the sport that goes along with that, in London is just phenomenal. I mean, I obviously wasn't party to that sort of think tank that brought that idea to the table, but certainly from my own experience, I would imagine that the gap in the market was identified and they looked sort of further into that. But then, it's great. We've still got Wetherby Senior School as well. So if you want that single sex option, you've now got the choice. And I think that's a great thing about Inspired, is they're always looking for gaps in the market and how can they plug that? And they've got the backing to be able to do that. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Very exciting time, particularly when you and I both know how competitive the London school system is.
Yes.
To be able to say to parents that there are other options.
Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And slightly selfishly, being part of the Wetherby family, we make that sort of transfer as easy as possible, for our boys to move into those schools if that is the school that they choose. And I think that's key. If they were coming from outside of the group, it would be a little bit more tricky for them to move into the schools because obviously, like you say, all that competition. But, we're really keen to offer this as something which helps families to make good choices for their sons, in our case, to be moving into excellent schools, but with that little advantage that we'll look after them.
In this edition, we've done London's Senior Schools panel with St Paul's Girls and DLD and Alain's, and had a lot of feedback from leading heads like yourself about why London, why as a parent choose London, what is the benefit of sending your child to school in London? So that has to really be a question that we address. You're in Marylebone, you're pretty central. What do you feel are the advantages of being in a London school?
Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. It's incredible because the opportunities are on your doorstep. You have everything that you need. So, I mean, the obvious things like the museums, the theatres, the cultural buildings and, locations, all sorts of different things that you can immerse the boys in so that you can bring learning to life. You don't have to go very far to find them. So, that's the obvious one that sort of comes to mind straight away. But I think also it's the cultural diversity in London. We talk about this all the time, making our boys real world ready to move out into roles wherever they may be across the globe. And London is a wonderful cultural mix. And I think, as a school, we have that reflected as well. And I just think it's one of our incredible strengths of the school. We learn so much from each other. Come back to those sort of values that we have, inclusivity, respect, all the things where we can learn from each other and understand what each person brings to the table. Why are they unique? Why are they perhaps celebrating different things at different times of the year? Why do we have differing opinions on things? And if we're respectful of each other's opinions, it's okay to have different opinions. We can talk about it, and through that we gain deeper understanding of each other. And that's not to say that schools that aren't in London don't do this, by the way. It's very clear in our schools that this is what's happening. And I think what an incredible thing to be able to do. But also, we can celebrate all of that through different events within the school day. So we invite parents in to come and talk to the boys about maybe what their career is. And there are great career opportunities across London that you wouldn't necessarily get out in the countryside. And we can get our architects, our finance people, our people involved in the musical world, our people involved in all sorts of event management and things in IT, that boys can sit and listen to somebody who actually has that experience and is able to learn from that and perhaps ignite a little spark that one day they might like to follow that career path. And again, all of this is in our community, on our doorstep. And as I say, there are so many different ways I could keep going on.
I think we're all very much echoing the same sentiment, but I think the biggest thing, speaking to all of the different heads that I've spoken to for this edition, what comes through is the global nature of being based in London and the diversity. I think that's a big thing.
Now, I was going to say, we talk about belonging all the time. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest things. If you feel like you have a place at the table, at the Wetherby Prep School table, and feel like you belong because you can recognize other people like yourself there, then I just think that should be our primary focus, because everybody, is unique. And I think that's absolutely key, that they can see themselves around that table. And I think that's brilliant.
We're also thinking about, in this edition, life skills, something I think, yes, parents are concerned about results and schools and things like that, but I think they also want to know that their child is going to be able to survive when they go out into what is increasingly a very competitive, challenging world post-school. In your welcome on the school's website, you say, "We hope boys will develop skills needed for life beyond education." How are these skills taught and incorporated into life at Wetherby Prep?
I mean, I really do believe that is the purpose of education. We shouldn't just be training boys how to sit an exam and do assessments. Obviously, that's part of a process, but that's not our end goal. And we want to produce boys who are confident, who are interested in the world around them, curious about the world around them, and actually want to go and make a difference in that space. And actually, sometimes it starts with the most simple of things. One of the things that I sort of do every morning here, which, funny enough, I didn't imagine would cause as much sort of feedback as it has done, is to be on the door every morning and shake the boys' hands, make sure that they look me in the eye as they say good morning, that they're wearing their blazers with pride and their ties are, done up. So we start the day off in the way that we hope to continue it. I know this sounds like a slightly silly example to link to this, but actually what's been really interesting is the impact that simple action of doing that each morning has had on the boys and the learning environment, and on the parents and how they feel about their sons as well. It's fascinating. I had a mum last night just telling me that actually she was talking to her son recently. She was cooking and chatting to him, and he said, "Mum, would you look at me? Please make eye contact, because I'm trying to tell you something and you're not looking at me." And I thought, gosh, it's a simple thing, but isn't that a life skill? If you go into an environment as an adult one day and you're not making eye contact necessarily, then, I think it just really, really helps. And as I say, that's a silly example, but there are other things. We believe in giving boys the opportunity to stand up on platforms, whether that's a musical platform or, a theatrical one or a math symposium, whatever it may be. And I always use this phrase with different people, not my own. So I have magpied this from another great educationalist, but they said to me, we should always make sure that we do it scared. And I think, wow, that's such a powerful statement, because if we take ourselves out of our comfort zone just every now and again, test our limits a little bit, it's those moments that the confidence is built, because you realize you can do it. Even though you were nervous to do it before you started, actually you can take it to the next level. And for me, confidence and independence are two incredible life skills that you can take forward. And if you've got that confidence, you're looking people in the eye, you're shaking someone's hand, and then you're able to deliver an interesting, whatever it may be, presentation or just contribution to a conversation, then I think we're doing a great job of preparing our young men of the future. And there are lots of other ways that we will do that as well. Hopefully those minor examples actually have major impact later on.
And your plans, obviously, as you said, you're 6 weeks in now,
Yeah.
and obviously feeling very at home already. What are your plans and hopes going forwards for Wetherby Prep?
I'm hugely ambitious for this school. I just think it's an incredible school. It's got incredible potential, and it is reaching a lot of its potential, but I don't believe that any school should say we're there, we've got it, we've got the winning formula, because that's when you start to actually become complacent and things slide. So for me, it's about where can we take this school next, and with that inspired support behind us, we'll always be a unique place to be, but we have all these threads that run through all our Wetherby schools. So we're looking at the academics. How can we fine tune things? How can we bring enrichment to our curriculum? How can we make sure that the boys are just slightly nudged out of their comfort zone so that they are challenged in their learning, not too far, but not sort of coasting either? That's the sweet spot of learning. That's when you master concepts. So we're looking at the curriculum. We're looking at the way in which the curriculum is delivered. Can we be more inventive and creative with how we do that? And what other experiences can we bring to the boys? So are there more clubs that we can offer which actually capture the interests of boys who perhaps we haven't yet captured their interest? Or are there different events where, as an example, I just met with the head of our school council, and he gave me a wonderful list of ideas of things that actually he would love to see. He's collated, well, not just his ideas, obviously, collated from all the councillors and then their class groups, all the wonderful things that we can bring to the table at Wetherby. And he's so excited. And the way he delivered it, I was getting excited. I thought, oh, these are brilliant ideas. So we can do that. And then he also came up with some ideas about how we could tweak things that we've done for a number of years. And he said, well, maybe we could do it better. And if we thought about this, would that be better? And I said, wow, that's amazing. So I think hearing the boys' voices in this process is so important. Yes, I'm 6 weeks in, but it's amazing how much you can learn in 6 weeks. And like I say, I'm hugely ambitious for the school, and I want it to be on the lips of every parent in London. I want people to be queuing up outside to come and see what we do. And honestly, I'd welcome them with open arms to come and see it, because it is a very special place. It really is.
Well, thank you for speaking with such passion. I certainly have sent already several families your way and will continue to do so. So thank you.
Please do. We would love to see them. Yes, and thank you for your support and for this opportunity as well to hopefully bring Wetherby Prep to life. So thank you.